Bungie just dropped a massive article nerfing abilities, buffing roaming supers, and nerfing the architects. We'll be going over everything in this article. This is really exciting, really good news for the arrival of Lightfall. Right here we have 2 abilities and beyond, a look at the past, present, and future of 3.0. We've got another update from our sandbox team to dive into, this time exploring more about abilities and changes on the way to subclass fun with the next expansion. Destiny 2's newest damage type Strand is arriving in Lightfall, and we're beyond excited for you to play around with it, but that's not why we're here today. No, we don't have any additional Strand gameplay details to share just yet. Instead, we'll be talking about some general ability updates and quality of life changes we're making in Lightfall and beyond. This is a real big issue. They're talking about power creep with the 3.0 system. With the release of Arc 3.0 alongside Season of Plunder, we completed moving all 3 light subclasses to the subclass 3.0 system. These updated subclasses allow players more customization and build crafting capabilities than ever before, which I genuinely like the 3.0 system. I think that this does add so much more customization than the old system. However, we obviously have seen a ton of power creep. You see this across the board in all PvE activities. People can just spam abilities, and it also has bled into PvP as well. Now that the 3.0 subclasses are out in the wild, we have some tuning work to do on the various systems connected to the subclasses. One such system is our core character stats. The amount of ability regeneration that discipline, strength, and class ability specific stats provide hasn't been meaningfully touched since the launch of Shadowkeep. Since then, across aspects, fragments, exotic armor, armor mods, and weapon perks, there are a variety of ways to have powerful abilities with very high uptime. This has resulted in some PvE activities losing the tension that made them special and introduced additional noise into the crucible. Moving forward, our goal with ability uptime in both PvE and PvP is to get back to roughly where we were with the 30th anniversary pack, launched in December 2021. I agree, I think this is probably a good approach. We're making some changes to the ability energy economy in Lightfall and subsequent seasons to correct ability uptime, while still rewarding players for investing in build crafting and fine-tuning their Guardian into the perfect monster slaying machine. For Lightfall, we are making the following change focused on passive cooldown gains. Rescaled the efficacy of discipline, strength, and each class ability stat on grenade melee and class ability regeneration rates. In general, the regeneration provided by a tier 10 stat is now roughly equivalent to tier 8 in the previous system. So what you have right now with tier 10 discipline will be what equivalently is tier 8 discipline currently, but that will be what the max is in the future. So they're bringing it all down, which is a good thing, I think, because obviously ability spam has gotten out of control. Each stat tier now provides a more consistent gain in cooldown reduction rather than spiking heavily at lower tiers. Nice. Destiny 2 is a game about space magic, and your abilities will always be central to your combat loop. With this change, while this change looks like a lot on paper, we believe the build crafting improvements coming in Lightfall will more than make up for it. As a quick example, your legendary armor now has 3 type-specific mod slots, up from 2, that can fit a wide variety of mods that are no longer restricted by elemental affinity, which is a fair balance between nerfing some of this stuff and then also getting some buffs in some other ways, especially towards heavier build crafting in the future. Starting in Lightfall, you'll be able to run all the following ability energy regenerating mods at the same time and more freely able to socket multiple copies of each: Bomber, Outreach, Impact Induction, Utility Kickstart, Melee Kickstart, Grenade Kickstart, Invigoration, Insulation, Innervation, Hands-on, Ash Assassin's Dynamo. Jeez. I mean, if you can add all of these to your builds, then a nerf to ability cooldowns is a really good thing overall, because it would obviously just get even crazier. You would basically not even have to shoot your gun in Lightfall if they didn't nerf this. So I think that this is a fair change. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Additionally, armor mod energy costs have been reduced across the board, and artifact mods no longer need to be slotted into your armor, giving you more space to build craft to your heart's content. I love this. In fact, so much is changing and being added in Lightfall that we expect players will find unique combinations of mods and perks that we didn't anticipate. In the coming seasons, we'll continue to tune the greater ability energy economy along with updates to specific ability potency to make them feel more powerful. Nice. In Lightfall, we'll also be adjusting the base cooldowns of some grenade, melee, and class abilities. We'll provide more detailed information in the patch notes when Lightfall goes live. As a preview, with Lightfall, we're reverting the base cooldown change to the dodge class ability that was implemented in hotfix 6305, as we feel that their cooldown under the new stat scaling system is in a good place. Marksman's dodge base cooldown reduced from 34 seconds to 29 seconds. Gambler's dodge base cooldown reduced from 46 seconds to... They had just implemented this in 6305. They're already reverting this in Lightfall. This is so strange. I don't know. Bungie is so odd. They literally just implemented that nerf and now they're already reverting it with Lightfall. Weird. I don't know exactly why they're doing that, but interesting. When in Rome, With the 30th anniversary release in December 2021, we split super regeneration times into separate tiers based on the damage potential of each super. With roaming supers generally having longer cooldowns than one-off supers, while we still believe that the gradient of cooldown times based on each super's potency is healthier for the game, we also recognize that roaming supers have taken a backseat in PvE content, particularly at higher difficulties, where neutral game options have grown more capable of clearing groups of enemies with subclass 3.0 keywords. We're working to address this problem, and we don't have a full suite of changes ready just yet. As a first step, in Lightfall, we're increasing the maximum number of orbs of power that roaming supers can generate from 5 to 7. Interesting. And reducing the number of orbs that burst supers create from 7 to 5. Okay, so they're inverting the supers there, making it so if you use Nova Bomb, you're going to make less orbs than if you were to use Nova Warp. We believe this split will more cleanly reinforces the gameplay role of these types of supers, and still provides space for burst supers to shine in combat. With future releases, we plan to do a larger tuning pass to balance roaming supers performance in higher tier content. Got it. Roaming supers increase the number of orbs of power that can be created via defeating targets from 5 to 7. One-off supers increase the maximum number of orbs of power that can be created defeating targets from 7 to 5. Note, the orb of power generation from Well of Radiance, Ward of Dawn, and both Shadow Shot variants is unchanged, so keep that in mind. We're also making a change to the only 3 supers in our longest cooldown tier, reducing their base cooldown by 1 tier. Oh, Hammer of Soul, Daybreak, and Spectral Blades base cooldown reduced from 1025 to 916. That's a nice change right there. A lot of people will probably be using those now. We'd also like to take this opportunity to detail a few ability-specific tuning changes coming with Lightfall. This is not a comprehensive list, which, as always, will be found in our patch notes, but it represents a portion of the major changes we're making. First up, Ward of Dawn. Oh, we're seeing the bubble nerf here. Get ready for this. With Void 3.0, Ward of Dawn was reintroduced as a selectable super rather than being tied to Sentinel Shield. As we've introduced more objective game modes into the Crucible with Zone Control, Iron Banner, Fortress, and Zone Capture Trials, it's become clear that Ward of Dawn is overperforming, especially in Zone Trials, let's be honest, and in the new Iron Banner Fortress. We don't want to reduce its functionality in PvE content, and in general, we still want Ward of Dawn to be a strong option when you need to lock down a point on a map. But we're making a few changes to make dislodging players from a Ward of Dawn more realistic in normal play. Nice. Ward of Dawn. Ward of Dawn maximum health reduced from 13,500 to 8,000. Okay, so it'll be a lot easier to pop the bubble with counter supers. For example, right now you shoot like 6 golden gun shots and it pops. In the future, you probably only have to shoot like, I don't know, 4 golden gun shots. Damage dealt to the ward by PvE combatants has been reduced to compensate. And in general, Ward of Dawn's effective health in PvE should not meaningfully change. Got it? I don't think they should nerf. Obviously, bubble should not be nerfed in PvE. In PvP, I understand, but in PvE, leave it alone. Standardize the damage dealt by each type of kinetic and energy weapon against the ward itself. Previously, energy weapons did 2.5 damage to Ward of Dawn, and kinetic weapons did 1 times damage. Now, regardless of damage type, the weapons do 1.5 damage to the Ward of Dawn. I mean, I think that's a fair change, but I will say that even shooting energy weapons at the bubble in PvP right now did effectively nothing. I mean, we tried our best to shoot like funnel webs at the bubble and we couldn't pop one, so unless the bubble is extremely weak from a super hitting it perhaps, but I don't really think this does much for trying to pop a bubble in PvP at least. Armor of Light has been updated to reduce its potency in PvP. Maximum health reduced from 425 to 300. Now inherits Void Overshield's 50% PvE damage resistance. No longer negates precision damage. Interesting. Similarly, Thunder Crash is currently proving too difficult to counter or escape in high-level Crucible modes and is too strong at both its pseudo-roaming and shutdown roles. Our goal with these changes is to bring it in line with without compromising on its fantasy of allowing you to be a missile. This also felt like a good opportunity to give Fist of Havoc a damage boost against PvE targets, so we're including that as well. Thunder Crash, reduced maximum flight time from 5 to 4.5 seconds. Seems fair. Reduced size of the damaging volume around the player while in flight by 20% and pushed it further forward in front of the player to make flyby disintegrations more intentional. Got it. That's going to be a little bit harder to hit those flybys. Descent now begins earlier in flight. Got it. Reduced landing detonation size versus players by 20%. Unchanged versus PvE targets. Fist of Havoc, increased PvE damage by 20%. Okay, Fist of Havoc gets a nice little 20% buff. We'll see if that's any better inside PvE. Arc 3.0 Spark of Resistance Fragment is achieving our intended goal of making close-range combat safer to engage with, but it's a bit too easy to keep rolling throughout an entire PvE encounter or Crucible or Skirmish. We're making a couple of changes here to increase the difficulty of doing so. without changing its potency while you're in the fray. Spark of Resistance, increase nearby enemy count requirement from activation from 2 to 3, got it. Reduced linger time after you're no longer surrounded from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, got it. Spark of Resistance was actually doing some crazy stuff in PvP. You could make it so you could survive 2 punches, so probably a fair change there. With Solar 3.0, the increased Daybreak duration provided by Dawnblade's attunement of Flame Path was removed, which has left Daybreak in a lackluster place. With Lightfall, in addition to the cooldown reduction detailed above, we're reducing its attack cost and increasing its damage output against PvE targets. Daybreak, super energy cost reduced from 10% to 6.5% per swing, increased PvE damage by 25%. Okay. Daybreak's about to be nasty, especially with that exotic helmet. Phoenix Dive has also struggled to find a solid role in most gameplay styles and is too difficult to justify picking up over healing or empowering rift. So we're going to be making a suite of changes to increase its viability across game modes, including a base cooldown reduction. Phoenix Dive, base cooldown reduced from 82 seconds to 55 seconds, nice. While Heat Rise is active, Phoenix Dive restoration duration increased from 1 second to 3 seconds. While Daybreak is active, Phoenix Dive's cooldown is significantly reduced, allowing for rapid reactivations. Okay, so you can just constantly dive to the ground, nice. While Daybreak is active, Phoenix Dive's detonation maximum damage increased from 80 to 220. Okay. Crash Test Guardians. They're nerfing the Architects. Get ready for this. Pretty soon, Guardians are getting a little sturdier. Starting Lightfall, physics collision damage will no longer be lethal to Guardians. Fall damage will still be lethal when Lightfall launches, but we plan to make that non-lethal in a mid-season update. You'll still take damage from physics collisions, but it will generally leave you at 1 HP instead of outright splattering you. We hope you'll take this newfound freedom and run with it. We found it's more fun to hurl ourselves headlong into danger without worrying about what's in our way. We're Guardians after all, so there it is. You won't die from flying into walls anymore. You still take fall damage, and you still take damage from flying into the wall, but it won't kill you in a future update. New tools in the arsenal. As a part of our build crafting enhancements in Lightfall, we'll be adding some new fragments to the light subclasses and updating a handful of fragments on Solar and Void to tie into the new subclass pickups. Void Breaches and Fire Sprites. Some of these fragment additions are intended as spiritual successors to combat style mods that aren't making the jump over to the new armor build crafting system, and some are brand new additions intended to open access to subclass verbs that some classes didn't have before. Here are the details. Arc. Spark of Instinct, new. When critically wounded, taking damage from nearby enemies emits a burst of arc damage energy that jolts from targets. Interesting. Spark of Haste, new. You have greatly increased resilience, recovery, and mobility while sprinting. Solar Fire Sprite, new. Fire Sprites are created by a suite of new and existing solar fragments and grant grenade energy on pickup. Ember of Mercy is new. When you revive an ally, you and your nearby allies gain restoration. Picking up a Fire Sprite grants restoration. Nice. Ember of Resolve, new. Solar Grenade Final Blows cure you. Interesting. Ember of Tempering now creates a Fire Sprite on solar weapon kills while active in addition to its original effects. Ember of Combustion now creates a Fire Sprite on solar super defeats in addition to its original effects. Ember of Searing now creates a Fire Sprite when defeating scorched targets in addition to its original effects. Got it. Void Breach, new. Void Breaches are created by a selection of new and existing Void Fragments and grant ability energy on pickup. Echo of Cessation is new, and Finisher Final Blows create a burst of void damage that cause nearby enemies to become volatile. Defeating volatile targets creates a Void Breach. Nice. Echo of Vigilance, new. Defeating a target when your shields are depleted grants you a temporary Void Overshield. Nice. Echo of Domineering now creates a Void Breach when defeating suppressed targets in addition to its original effects. Echo of Harvest now creates a Void Breach when defeating weakened targets with precision damage in addition to its original effects. Echo of Starvation now grants Devour on picking up a Void Breach in addition to its original effects. Very nice. It'll be interesting to see how we'll be build crafting on Lightfall and putting together these fragments and stuff. Definitely be bringing a ton of build crafting content. Looking forward to this. In case you missed the build crafting update from a couple weeks back, we've also added ways for our subclass keywords to counter champions, and we covered that video as well if you want to watch that. We still expect weapons and seasonal artifact mods to be the primary ways you encounter champions and high-level PvE content. We found that the subclass keywords are a solid complement to round out your loadouts or get your fire team out of a tight spot when an unstoppable champion is barreling towards you. We'll be keeping an eye on this when it goes live, and we're excited to see players use it. That's it from the gameplay team today. Looking forward to Lightfall. Very nice. I think that a lot of these changes are pretty fair, especially if you've been playing the game this past year. You'll know that the abilities spam has gotten pretty out of control. The power creep has gotten pretty steep, and I'm looking forward to Lightfall being somewhat of a reset. I mean, I don't think that everything should just get nerfed across the board. I think that's nice when things are adjusted in some way, so that way we create new play styles and stuff. And so I like what Bungie's doing here. I think that they're taking the right approach. Overall, I think that this is a good adjustment to the game. Let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comments below. And again, make sure you're subscribed here with notifications on, because I will keep you up to date on all the news in Destiny 2 as soon as I get it. World's first news here. Smash the like button. See you in the next one. Later.